So my senior year of high school, I started becoming friends with this girl named Megan, who was a junior at the time. And we were always cool, but we didn't start becoming friends until after I graduated and she was becoming a senior. We just started building a friendship organically and genuinely, like, and I loved it because it was outside of school, so everything was legit, like real. It was just organic. Um, and we just continued that friendship on to me being in college, her asking me questions about the process, about school and everything like that, me trying to help her, find schools, or just like being there to talk with her and everything like that. We actually became really, really, really close in a short period of time. And to the point where, like, I'd even helped her get a job where I was working at. One Friday evening, we were working together and we were closing. And, everything was fine, everything was cool. We get to the end of the shift and everybody's like, okay, bye, see you tomorrow, da 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 da, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm seeing you tomorrow, Megan. And she's like, yeah, I'm seeing you tomorrow. And I didn't feel anything. Like, I didn't feel like anything was off. I didn't feel like anything was wrong. It was just like, hey, yo, I'm gonna see you tomorrow. Yeah. So tomorrow comes and I get there at 2 o'clock. That's my regular shifts. And I'm working from 2 to 3. And at 3 o'clock comes in, another coworker comes in, and she's like, "Hey, Will, have you heard from Megan? Seen Megan?" And I'm like, "No, why? What's up?" And she says people on social media saying "Rest in peace, Megan," and da 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 da. And I'm just like, Megan's not dead. She was just here last night. Ain't nothing wrong with her. So I text her, like, Megan, people saying you there. You okay? And like, looking back at it now, it's like, you really text somebody that people were saying was dead. And it's like, but I didn't think about it that way because I'm like, I just saw her. She's not dead. Like, we were just together a few hours ago. She's not dead. So I'm just like, she gonna reply back. I'm like, no, boy, I ain't dead. I'm gonna see you in a couple hours. I'm like, all right, bet. So some time passed, and right before she's supposed to get there, two men in black suits come into the job and talk to the managers, talk to them in the back. And I'm just like, as soon as I saw them, like, I froze and I broke down. When I saw the suits, I'm like, something's wrong. And I just started praying, and I'm like, please, Lord, please don't let this be true, X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, maybe she's not dead. Maybe she's in the hospital. And maybe they're just trying to, come to us and let us know. And I'm just like, I'm just praying, I'm praying, I'm praying. And like, it was the longest 5 minutes of my life. So a little bit of time passed, and they leave. And then the managers come get my coworker and I and take us to the back, and we're in the room, and they tell us that Megan had committed suicide. And I broke down. It still impacts me to this day, especially because, from the ages of 10 through 17, 18 years old, I thought about committing suicide. I was depressed. I went through all of these emotions, probably went through the same emotions that she did. And at the time, I just felt like maybe if I had picked up on something, maybe if I had paid attention a little bit more closely, maybe if I just, asked a few more questions, and we could have bonded, and I could have, maybe helped her, and we could have figured this out, and maybe she would still be here. And it's just like, I didn't know. And it hurts. It still hurts because it's like I literally saw her the night before. We literally talked. We had conversations for hours at work, and we was gonna see each other the next day. And I never saw her live again.
Typically, when we look at suicide data, we break it down by pretty wide age groups. Usually a 10 to 24 is where we start out, and then onwards we usually do it by decade. And when you look at the data that way, it actually appears that the Black community has a significantly lower suicide rate compared to other racial groups. But what researchers recently found is that among Black children aged 5 to 12, that they actually have twice the suicide rate compared to their white peers. So just given the data that we currently have, we don't have a good idea or understanding of why that disparity exists. We do know that after the age of 12, from 12 to 24, the suicide rate does fall back down as compared to their white peers, but there are a lot of theories about why that might be.
In May of 2018, JAMA Pediatrics released a study that stated that suicide rates amongst Black kids ages 5 through 12 has doubled compared to their white counterparts. Now, while multiple psychiatrists have pointed out the flaws in their study, the study still leads to concerns, especially amongst the Black community.
And what I noticed, it was very unusual for the author to use this incredibly rare measurement to measure increase of suicide among Black children. I mean, usually you say so many children per 1,000 or so many children per 100. And if you notice his data, if you go back in time, he has this high rate of suicide, or I should say higher rate of suicide for white children. Then suddenly, by using this, rare statistic, there's a jump in the Black suicide rate. So I'm kind of suspicious of the data. At best, Black suicide has always fallen way, Black children's suicide has always fallen way behind that of white students. There is an increase in suicide in general, particularly dealing with bullying, and that's across the board, regardless of race.
In 2018, I interviewed Timothy Williams, a 23-year-old college graduate who suffered from depression from the ages of 12 to 19. This interview was the first time Williams spoke on his past in such a way. This brief journey is to compare how William first was when speaking on his depression to having time to think and analyze.
Well, I had a lot of bullying that I went through. I've never really understood why, but I guess, you do music, you're not really into sports and everything. So a lot of times people would label me as just being gay, even though I never actually was. So I actually went through a lot of the bullying that people who do come out of the closet have. But that was really hard, You have people throwing around a bunch of words at you. Everybody wants to be pretty much just people being assholes, I went through a lot of really dark periods of time. I never actually formally went to go get diagnosed, so a lot of it is just me looking back and looking at things, but I was definitely depressed. There's no question about that in my mind. Well, I guess since about a year ago, things have kind of progressed a little bit. I actually did start going to therapy on my own, which was a big step. That kind of has been a journey in itself, like going from trying to find the right one to then actually trying to go and not missing my appointments, which I do still miss my appointments. But, going and actually trying to get the tools to actually be able to better the way that I think about things, It feels like I'm actually moving in the right direction as opposed to just kind of being out in the middle of nowhere with no lifeline. When I first started going, I actually asked my parents if they'd ever gone to therapy at all. My mother doesn't usually open up about a lot of stuff, and I actually was surprised that she actually had in the past started going to see a therapist when she had a similarly rough patch that she went through. And my father as well, when he moved away from home for the first time, he found out that he actually had pretty bad anxiety, and I didn't even know that. And that actually makes a lot of the ways that I internalize things and the ways that I view things make a lot more sense, because I actually have been diagnosed with anxiety myself now.
Mental health is kind of everything for me. I have realized, and more so in my adult life, that I've had to kind of work around it so it doesn't become my identity, because I struggle a lot with depression, anxiety, and then just because of life, PTSD. So I deal a lot with that, and it's just very much a balance in my personal life, and then outwardly, especially how I use my blog is trying to help make other people aware and help kind of break the stigmas that, you know, you're broken or you're damaged and that you can't live a normal life while having mental health issues. A big part of my blog is looking at the intersection between faith and normal, I guess, mental health procedures in terms of therapies, in terms of getting counseling or even going to the hospital if need be, but also letting people know that you can have God and have a therapist too, because a lot of times, especially in the Black community, it's like, you know, if something's wrong, just talk to God about it, but you can have both. They're doctors for a reason.
There's a history of mistrust between all healthcare facilities and the Black community, and specifically Black males. You can ask a brother that has got a PhD or a law degree or as a medical doctor, you say Tuskegee experiment. They know what you're talking about. They know that Black men were withheld from being treated in syphilis 70, 80 years ago in this country, and they see it in a lot of things that occur in hospitals. We don't get adequate care.
So outside of the department, in other experiences as a clinician, I have seen more people from the Black community coming to therapy, and a lot of the things that I hear from them when they finally do come to therapy is that it's either hard to find a Black provider that they would identify with, or they're told by people around them that therapy isn't something that Black people do or isn't really accepted in the community. So just in those experiences, I have seen that the stigma is still very prevalent among the Black community. So I think it's important, one, for us to try to make efforts to repair the relationship between the Black community and the medical community and reestablish that trust, but also try to identify some of the strengths that exist within the Black community and use those to promote mental health.
I did initially go to a Black therapist that I didn't end up liking too much, and then I actually ended up with a white therapist. I was surprised that I could actually connect to my therapist, not necessarily being African American, but I guess at the end of the day, people are people, sort of. But it is definitely easy to open up. For me personally, it's easier to open up to women more than men, but I guess that's just kind of the way that we push things in our own culture.
The church, my church for me was a really big pillar in that, especially right after I was assaulted, and just kind of changing how I saw myself, how I saw the world, just giving me that support. That was a big part of it. It wasn't until college that I really started going to counseling regularly. So there was it helped to keep me at bay, but there was a definite need for professional counseling that I didn't get until later, and I wish that I had sooner.
So I haven't actually sought counseling yet. I know I want to. I know I need it. I'm a little bit fucked up, so I know I definitely need it in my life. From the ages of 11 to 17, I was depressed and anxious and extremely suicidal. I wrote my suicide note probably about 4 to 5 times. My mother, she actually found one of them. I think she still has it, or like for the longest time she kept it. I was always the big kid growing up. Big kid, I wasn't a sports person. I was creative. Peep the shirt. I like fun things. I like creative things. I played music. I drew. I wrote. I still write and play music to this day. And I had messed up teeth. That's why I got braces now. But when you put all those things together and you're 10, 11, 12, 13, to you're 17, 18, 19 years old, to this day, you know, it impacts you. It makes you feel away, but especially when you're younger. So, you know, I would get teased a lot. I wouldn't say bullied. I wasn't bullied in school. I was teased in school. Because you know what they say, there's truth in every joke. There's a little bit of truth in every joke. There is. Where I would say I was bullied at is at home.
I think more than anything, I'm hopeful more that things are gonna be different, where a lot of times before I'd even started actually looking for help, I didn't really know if things would really be better, if I was just gonna have to like sort of deal with it forever. I mean, now I know that it's more just kind of things that you live with, but you just get better at being able to actually deal with them, have the tools to actually manage them more. And I think that's pretty good. Lately, things have been a little bit more slow going for me, but I think it's just because it's been a rough kind of like start to the year. But things are, picking up, I guess.
We out here tripping at the mess. It don't make no sense. Out here tripping at